What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Saturdays in the SEC, episode 111. Man, we're getting close to 8A games. We're working our way through spring ball here, getting kind of towards the end. Um, got some spring games. I believe Auburn's is this Saturday. I believe the
Believe
6th.
so. I believe
So
so.
that's coming up this week. A host of SEC schools play on the 13th, the following Saturday. So we're really getting into, the end of spring ball now. Always a fun time to kind of evaluate where all the teams are at and get to see them get to see them on TV a little bit and kind of see what names are going to emerge this fall is always a blast to see. But a couple topics just more to hit on tonight. Um, the SEC has come out with their 2025 conference schedule. So they're remaining at 8 games for 2025, just like 2024. And the opponents in 25 are going to be the exact same as 24. It'll just be opposite of where you're playing this year. So, for example, Georgia's playing at Alabama this year. Well, Alabama will make a return trip to Athens in 2025. As far as specific dates of when they're playing, they haven't released that yet. I'm not sure if it'll stay the same kind of format as this year, but at least the opponents will be the same. So everybody will be playing the same opponents in 24 and 25. So um, we got some
And
really good matchups this
yeah,
year, and we'll get them again in 25, which will be fun to see. Kind of home and home splits like usual.
yeah, we were just talking about so you play two teams two years in a row, and the two teams you don't play, you play in the next 2 years. But that actually, what we were just talking about, and I was just thinking about it still, and it actually may not be true because they are they're going to a 14 team playoff in 2026. So the 2026 season model might be different than what it is now. And the teams you don't play every year might be different. The teams you play every year might be different. So we think that you're going to play two teams the next 2 years and you won't play them for 2 years, but who knows? It might change it. Well, it's going to change again as a whole of college football, but as the conference for the SEC, it's bound to change again. So you really never know. It's a great conversation piece. Honestly, you could talk about it to no end because we'll never know until 2025 at this time in 2025. So I mean, I love it. I love that it's given us, some content and stuff in the off season, and it keeps you engaged in college football, and it keeps you locked in on the sport even in the off season. You got something to talk about, so I love it. No bad news from college football, or no news in college football is ever bad news. Even if the article is about bad news, for me as a fan, no breaking news in college football is bad.
Yeah, so kind of some thoughts on the 2025 scheduling as far as that goes. So obviously the SEC really considered doing a 9 game schedule because you've seen other conferences do that, notably the Big Ten. So there's a lot of talk about the SEC doing that and people kind of wanting them to. But
I like that layout.
at the end of the day, just reading a report this off CBS Sports, but the league they didn't believe they were going to get higher television dollars for adding that ninth conference game, at least at this time. And then on the other end of the spectrum, some of your bottom tier teams, obviously staying at 8 games, it does help some of the lower teams potentially get bowl eligible. You know how many times going that last weekend that SEC school may have 5 wins and to get that bowl eligibility or have a weaker opponent before your rivalry week game. So um, that was kind of the thought process in that. I mean, ultimately, they didn't feel at this time they would get more TV money for adding that extra game. And that's what they wanted because obviously you're adding more quality games. It's a higher price, but it
Right.
just didn't work out that way at that time. So all this is kind of a short term solution. It's very fluid because, like you mentioned, with 2026 and the playoff expanding again, they're kind of having to decide this on a year to year basis because things are changing so rapidly right now. So that's kind of the thought process as far as 2025, but it'll be the same as this year, except home and away splits will obviously be flip flopped. But very excited for um, a lot of the matchups this year. I thought they hit a home run on the schedule release for 24, and We were
Absolutely.
actually talking about Georgia's schedule a little bit ago. They're playing at Texas, at Alabama, at Ole Miss this year, and obviously in
Gauntlet.
25 that'll be flipped. So in 2025, Georgia will have for their fans, because they've always talked about not playing enough like high quality home games like in conference play. They've just been such head and shoulders above everybody. Um, well, in 2025, they're going to have the best home schedule they probably ever had in the history
Oh
of
yeah.
football with Texas, Bama, Ole Miss coming in. Just those three off the top. I don't even know their other ones yet, but yeah, it should be really exciting and it'll be fun. We'll have some classic matchups and some really close games this year, and it'll be fun to be able to see those again the next year as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. They do have a gauntlet this year, though. I'm super excited to see what Ole Miss is going to be. I know Lane Kiffin. He's been there a few years now, and he's worked his recruiting stuff, but he's really done his work in recruiting through the portal. I'm excited to see how sustainable that is after this season, because this season I feel like is the best chance that Lane Kiffin has to really go win a championship of some sort, whether it be SEC or national championship of some sort. I really do feel that confident in Ole Miss this year. I didn't have that. I liked Ole Miss last year. We both did. We said we felt like they were going to be about like they were the season before, maybe a little bit better, and that's about what they were. Best season in program history. So we thought they were going to be good. We knew they were going to be good. No surprise there. But this year is they weren't last year. They weren't quite to the pedestal they needed to be to compete for championships. We saw them play against Alabama, and the product they put out there wasn't bad, but it wasn't to the level they needed to compete at. He's gone out and got some more high caliber players, big star guys that are expected to be plug and play to go win a championship and go compete at the highest level. So I'm super, super excited to see how the Ole Miss Rebel Bear Land Sharks do this season. I love Lane Kiffin and Hotty Toddy this season. I'm ready to see what they do.
Me too. I mean, that's honestly one of the teams I'm most, eager and fascinated to watch is like, even though they've had, 10 win seasons, double digit win seasons, obviously historic, what he's done there over the last handful of years, but that they've never been on that level to compete. Like even then, the last couple of years, they haven't been on Alabama's level, Georgia's level. Like when they go head to head with those teams, there's still a gap there.
Yep.
Even though they were at near the top of the conference, but I think this year the expectations are, hey, we're playoff or bust, and we should really have a legitimate shot to compete for the SEC title, and compete and really be on the same tier as Georgia, Texas, Alabama's going to be. So I'm very, very excited to see them. I'm super high on Jackson Dart this year.
Yep.
I mean, he's been really, really great over the last 2 years. I think he's due another big season this year, and I want to see if he can really take them to the next level. But I think the pieces they added on defense is going to make the biggest jump for them. And if those pieces click, I think they'll have a legit shot to really be in that top tier in the SEC and compete with the big dogs.
And I hope they're gelling well. I mean, it's a bunch of different guys from different programs, different backgrounds. I hope that they're, coming in well. There's no news that they're not. And with us talking about this, I mean, we're feeling the expectation that Ole Miss has. They're obviously feeling it. It's harder to perform under that the way you've been performing the last 2 years. If the expectation's there. If the expectation's not there, you just go out, you're shocking the world or whatever. Everybody's just catching them by storm. But when they see it a couple years and they're expecting it, and then like we're talking, they're expected to compete for a championship this year. They're feeling that buzz, they're feeling that pressure. It's a little harder to perform, but having a group of veteran older guys that's been there, done that, it makes it a little easier to navigate the season when those expectations are on you. So I feel like Lane Kiffin has a really good group of guys to help do that this year and really set himself apart as a college football coach from the rest and go win a championship and be part of the elite coaches in college football, which I believe he is. He gets a lot of slack for what he does on social media, and he well deserved. He does some stuff that he deserves to be, picked at for whatever. He likes to pick at people. He deserves to be picked at times. There's some things he does that's questionable. I'm like, as a college coach, why are you worried about that? But also, I love him to death. I think he's hilarious. He's obviously a great entertainer. He puts a great product on the field. But I think that he is one of the best college football coaches in that's out there, that's active right now. And I think he can separate himself this year and really prove to everybody that what he does off the field doesn't distract what he's doing in his program and inside the locker room, inside the four walls that matter.
Yeah, I mean, I can't wait to watch them this year, man. I'm super excited about them. I think it's a fascinating conference this year. I mean, it's always interesting.
I feel like as deep as it's been in our lifetime,
Yeah,
as many quality, legit teams that are in it.
yeah. I mean, you could legitimately make a case like, I mean, it's a good 7, 8, 9 deep,
Oh yeah,
honestly. And even some of the teams that are maybe middle or lower tier, like, I mean, I think they're not bad teams. They're just their records are going to be bad because they're having to play,
yeah,
you know, most of the top 10 or 15 programs in the country. A team I'm really fascinated to see this year is Oklahoma. I mean, you're
yeah,
talking about, um, they lost Dylan Gabriel, or Dylan Gabriel goes to Oregon. I mean, basically, they turned the reins over to Jackson Arnold.
yeah.
I mean, that's why Dylan Gabriel's not there anymore and he's in Eugene. But so it kind of shows the confidence they have in him, um, to kind of basically turn it over to him. And been hearing some good things about him. I was looking at a lot of power rankings, just getting people's thoughts on kind of the early, you know, the spring power rankings, kind of, if you will. And it's amazing. I think Oklahoma's going to be a really good team, and they're power rated like seventh, eighth, like almost every one I've seen, which is just shows you the depth of the conference. And I
Yeah.
don't necessarily disagree with it, but it just shows you how deep the SEC is this year, and I think going forward as well. But they're a team that I think they have the capability of being better than that. Like they're extremely talented. Um, but I'm really curious to see where they kind of shake out in that middle tier. But they
Yeah.
certainly have the capability. Any of the top 7 or 8 have the capability of playing their way a
I
little bit
think
higher.
I think that there's going to be 5 SEC teams in the playoff this year, minimum. I think Alabama, Georgia, LSU, Ole Miss, and damn, I wrote it. I literally wrote it down at work today, and I left it at work.
Probably Texas, I would think.
Texas, yes,
Yeah.
Texas with Quinn Ewers, yeah. So those are the 5 that I think are guaranteed going to be in the playoffs this year.
So you got the SEC taking up a lot of the auto,
5
not
and
the
12.
automatic, it's the at large.
There's seven other spots. I feel like 4 of the others, at least 3 are going to be taken up by Big Ten, with Penn State, Michigan, and Ohio State. Potentially a 4th, but I think 5 for sure is going to be SEC. There could be more, but I would be willing to bet everything I got in my bank account that those 5 teams I just listed are going to be in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think the only way they not is just because, like I said, you got the 5 auto bids. Obviously, one of those is already going to be an SEC team. So really, you would have to take up 4 of the remaining 7 spots. I I think they probably. I'm like you. I really think there's probably 4 or 5 for sure that are definitely good enough to be in the top 12 for sure. I just worry about them beating up on each other and the committee not wanting to just stack SEC teams with all the
Yeah.
at-large bids. But I don't disagree with your point at all. I think there's going to be 5 SEC teams that are top 12 teams. I just don't know how it's going to shake out. Like, would they put a 4-loss LSU in at the 12 spot? Or 3-loss, I guess. Be interesting to see. I'm with you though. I think there's definitely going to be 4 or 5 that are in the top 12 or that are top 12 caliber teams. But yes, it's going to be fascinating. There's going to be quite a few. I mean, there always is. There's usually 3 or 4 SEC teams in that top 10 or 12. So
I mean, Alabama, Georgia, LSU, they're not taking a step backwards. If anything, LSU's about to take a step forward with their defense. I really firmly believe that, and we know we're heavy on Nussmeier, so I think those 3 are a given. Alabama, Georgia, LSU. I think those three are a given. We just spoke about Ole Miss and how highly we expect them to perform this year. With a 12-team playoff, I definitely think they get in because I think they're just as good as they were last year, if not better. And last year they would have been in a 12-team playoff. And then Texas, obviously, they made the playoffs. I think they're going to be back there too. Obviously, like you said, beating up on each other, but I think that both those teams that I'm talking about are going to have 2 losses max, and there's not going to be 3-4 other teams out there that deserve to be in there that are going to get in over them. I truly don't believe it.
Yeah. It's going to be fascinating to watch, man. I can't wait. I'm excited about it. Like I said, and I think there's some other SEC teams. I look at, like I said, Oklahoma. I think they got the potential to play their way up, and that they're certainly talented enough. I want to see what Missouri does again this year. Can they follow up last year's kind of dream season for them? And a lot of positive buzz with Eli Drinkwitz, and obviously lost some defensive staff to LSU, but there's been some positive buzz about they did a really good job of replacing those guys. So, obviously, I don't think they'll probably be able to match last year's season, but I do think they're going to have another solid season and kind of help set that foundation. But there's just so many storylines out across the league, man. It's
Cook for president.
It's going to be awesome to watch.
I love Brady Cook.
I do too, man. I think he's going to have another great season. I did want to talk about a little couple spring practice nuggets with Alabama. The Washington transfer center, Parker Brazelford. A lot of people thought he was going to be plug and play, probably including myself, to be honest with you. He hasn't been at practice recently in the last few days or week, I believe. Not sure exactly what it's about, but a lot of positive buzz about James Brockermeyer kind of taking a hold of that center job, or at least for the moment. Had a really good spring camp so far. They're very pleased with the progress he's made. He's a multi-year guy, been in the program. Got his weight up a little bit. He came in kind of undersized several years ago. I think he's up to about 290 now. So a lot of positive buzz about him, and I think he's been running with the ones mostly. So not sure what's going to happen with Brazelford. Hopefully it'll work out and he ends up staying. But a little bit of a nugget there with him. And then as far as the quarterbacks with Jalen Milroe, seems like no surprise, but seems to have a pretty strong hold on QB1 right now. They like what they've seen out of him, the strides that he's made. A lot of good buzz out of Ty Simpson, kind of in that second spot. And then Austin Mack, the Washington transfer quarterback, who DeBoer and the staff are very high on his upside. And he was actually an early enrollee for Washington last year, or he reclassified. So really, this is truly his freshman season. Like if he would have just stayed in high school, this would be his freshman year. So he got a little bit of a jump there, learning the system. So they're very excited about his upside. But that's a few nuggets out of Alabama spring camp so far. They just had their first scrimmage last Thursday. So they'll have another one this week, and then before A-Day will be on next Saturday, the 13th.
Mm-hmm. And out of Auburn, there's not really a whole lot of reports out of Auburn. Cam Coleman is turning heads. He's still in the show. Lots of reports about him. People are reporting, buy stock in Cam Coleman while you can. This kid's going to make a difference on the offense immediately. Hugh Freeze even has high praise for him. He said he looks different. He makes us look different. He's definitely going to be. He said, I'm excited to see what he does this year, but he said he makes us look different, which is always good to hear from the head coach. High praise from a freshman. And then the quarterback spot, everybody wants to talk about. Obviously, it's been reported that they believe that Peyton Thorne's really taken hold of the starting spot. Really, as seen through the reports, that he's progressed a lot and matured a lot in the position. Understands the system a little bit more. They did change up some things verbiage wise and a little bit here and there for getting back to what Hugh Freeze wants, but it's pretty much the same system as a whole. And he reports are saying that he's done a great job of understanding the system and coming in as a second year, being a great leader, and he's really taking hold of this starting job as of right now, where they are in spring ball.
So I know it's a little early, I guess. I mean, obviously, we'll really do our previews in the summer, leading up to fall camp. But what's your feel, just your early feel on Florida this year? I mean, obviously, we know they have one of the toughest schedules in the country, if not the toughest. It's right up there at the top. Do you honestly think your gut feeling as of now? Do you think Billy Napier makes it to the end of the season? Like, do you think he's going to see 2025, or do you think this is going to be his last year in Gainesville? If you had to say right now,
do I think he's going to coach again next season? No. Do I think he's going to coach throughout the remainder of this season and finish the season out? Yes, I do. I don't think they're going to fire him middle of the year. They may. I don't think it's going to get that bad. They did lose their biggest, most important piece on offense to Georgia this past transfer portal cycle, or 2 cycles ago, I guess. Lord, there's so many of them, can't keep up. But losing ETN really does hurt. It hurts the offensive production, and I don't think he's got what he needs right now for what he needs to be successful in his eyes. I think he needs a little more time. I think if they would give him the time, that he could get there and get them where they need to be and want to be. But I don't think that they're willing to wait and let him get there and let him build it up. I think they want it now, and I think this is his last year to prove it. I think he's got to win at least 8 games minimum. I mean, they have a brutal schedule. If he comes out of that schedule with 8 wins, I think is a great job, and I think he keeps his job for another year. But I think anything less than 8 wins he's out the door at the end of the season. And I think 8 wins is tough with this schedule. It'll be tough for any team to have with this schedule, honestly. I mean, let's pull it up. Do you have it pulled up right now?
yes, I got it right.
Yeah, read it off for the listeners, because I mean, this. If you haven't looked at this schedule, it's probably in my opinion, the toughest schedule in the SEC this year.
Yeah, so week 1's Miami at home. Then you got Samford at home, A&M at home, and then at Mississippi State, UCF at home, at Tennessee, Kentucky at home, Georgia on a neutral site, at Texas, LSU at home, Ole Miss at home, and then at Florida State.
Yeah,
that's
a gauntlet.
That's tough. I will say they do have a good bit of home games. I mean, you got Ole Miss at home, LSU at home, Kentucky at home, A&M at home, Miami at home. So they do have a good home schedule, which is nice. But at the same time, those are all really tough games. Like they could lose all those games. Obviously, at FSU is going to be very tough. At Texas, Georgia neutral site, at Tennessee, at Mississippi State. I mean, yeah, it's brutal. I mean,
and they're out of conference games. They got Miami and UCF. UCF is a damn good football team. That's not just some whack out of conference team. That's a Big 12 team now.
Yeah, no, that's it's a tough schedule from top to bottom. Honestly, I mean, your easiest game is Samford. And I believe Samford hung like 50 on them in Gainesville, like 2 or 3 years ago. So I believe I think it was Mullins last year, I believe. So I think it's 3 years ago now. But so I mean, you're talking about Samford week 2s, and all those other games you could technically lose, honestly.
And A&M's going to be good again. They got a new coach, but they got a lot of the same players. They're going to be good again.
Yeah, no, they're going to be very competitive, certainly. So. Miami is
Mississippi State. I'll give you Mississippi State. Whatever. Talk them out the window. Who cares? Everybody else on that schedule, tough.
Yeah, and I'm gonna be honest with you too. I don't know. I mean, I agree with you. I do think they'll beat Mississippi State, but Florida's not good enough to where they can just roll out there and beat anybody either.
Oh, right.
You know what
I'm
I mean?
just saying of the SEC teams on that schedule, Mississippi State is the worst one. You can make an argument that's not a tough game. Okay, I get you. Every other one of those. Brutal for where Florida is at a program right now. Brutal.
Yeah. No. Honestly, Billy Napier. I don't think the schedule could have worked out worse for him in a year where he really needed
Do you
He
think
needs
that
a
he's going to
solid year.
coach again next year? And do you think he's going to make it through the season? I think he'd make it through the season. I don't think he coaches in 25, not at Florida. What do you think?
I don't think he's the coach in 25 at Florida. I don't think he is. I mean, it really just depends on how it goes. Like if it really takes a turn bad, like you got if like Georgia just splatters them, and then you go at Texas and get splattered, and then LSU beats you, and then Ole Miss beats you. Like if it really went south, I think he probably would get fired for the end of the season. I don't, and the thing about it is, it's not that I'm not even like low on Billy Napier. Like
Yeah, I
I
like him
actually
a
think
lot.
Billy Napier is a pretty good coach. Honestly, I just think this schedule could not have worked out worse for them in a year where, like you said, they really need to perform. Um, yeah, I think. I mean, with the schedule the way it is, honestly, I think if he got 7, he it would probably save him. I'm like you, 8 would be great. I just don't see it happening,
Yeah.
to be honest with you.
Eight may be a little rich. I just know that if he wins 8, he's good. He'll coach in
Yes, yeah.
25.
If he wins
If
8, he's good
if he
for
wins
sure
7,
with this
he's
schedule.
teeter tottering. What was the 7th win? What's the biggest win of those 7? Like, which games are you winning to get that 7th win? You know what I mean? Like, are you winning a big game to help to save your, give you one more year? But this on 7, you're teeter tottering. You're on the fence. But you get 8, you're good. You're going to the next year. But anything below that, it's up in the air for sure. 6 or less, you're gone. But anything under 8, I guess 7, it's a teeter totter. But 8, you're sold. You're good. You're going to the next year at least.
I'm struggling to find like 4 or 5, to be
I'm
honest.
I'm with you, man. It
If
is going to
I'm
be. I'm
struggling to
probably going to take
find,
their under again. I took their under at 4.5 last year. It hit, or under 5.5, and it hit. It's probably going to be at 4.5 this year. I'll probably take it again.
yeah, it's going to be tough. And like I said, to me, I feel like this year it's more about the schedule for me than it is the team itself. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, not that the team's great or anything, but at the same time, like, I mean, there's a world where they could be better than last year and have a worse record. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, I think that's a real possibility. So I just wanted to throw that out there, get your thoughts. I mean, like I said, I like Billy Napier. I think he's a pretty good coach. Now, are there some things that he probably wishes he could go back and redo, maybe, with his staff possibly? Or sure, I think there's some things that maybe he'd go back and do differently in year 1, year 2. But at the same time, I mean, I still think he's a good coach. I just know the impatience is building there in Gainesville. So, and the way this schedule is setting up, I just don't see there being enough success to make it to a 4th year, in my opinion.
Yeah, and you look at his bye weeks. His bye week come out. His first one comes after Mississippi State, before UCF, and then the next one comes. It is nice. It comes before the largest cocktail party against Georgia. So after Kentucky against Georgia, but that means you got to go Georgia, Texas, LSU, Ole Miss, Florida State, no bye week. So that's tough. That's if I bet he would trade that bye week after Mississippi State and put it after Texas. I bet he would trade that for the world right now. But having those last 5 games be no bye weeks and this easily the hardest part of your schedule, it's a tough way to end the year because recency bias is a thing, and if you're at the end of the year and you've lost 5 of your last 6 games, that puts a really sour taste in people's mouths, and you're probably out the door.
Well, I'll be honest with you, and I feel pretty confident in saying this. He needs to win 4 of his first 5 to have a shot at saving his job, in my opinion. Because, I mean, you look at first 5, Miami at home, Sanford home, A&M at home, at Mississippi State, UCF at home.
And A&M, man, they're going to be good. They got a bunch of people back. They're still going to be good.
Yeah, he needs to win, and that's what I'm saying. That's a pretty tall order for them. 4 out of his first 5 to have a chance, because after that, after UCF, at Tennessee, Kentucky, Georgia neutral site, at Texas, LSU, Ole Miss. If you got to win 4 of your first 5 to even have a prayer, in my opinion. if he doesn't win 4 of his first 5, if he's like 3-2 or something,
Paying the buyout.
it's I think anything less than 4-1, he might not see the end of the year. Because I'm telling you, when you're already got 2 losses and then you roll off about 4 L's in a row, buddy, that
That's the
month,
Brian Harsin special right there.
yeah. So it's gonna be. I mean, it's gonna be interesting. I hope they do it. I'm pulling for him. I really am. Because I think he's a good coach. Like, but at the same time, man, it's
How
a
much of
high
a difference
pressure
can Graham
business.
Mertz make? How much better has he gotten? Can he take over the team? That's the question. If he can he? Is he Napier's knight in shining armor? Can he save his career? We'll find out.
Yes, we'll find out. Can the handoff specialist be his knight in shining armor, man? So I mean, hey, he had a gunslinger. Graham Mertz had a good year last year,
He
man.
did. He really
He's gonna
did.
have to be tossing it around again to have a shot of saving Billy's job. But um, we'll see what happens. But that's one of the teams I'm very fascinated in this season. And like I said, that schedule though, man, like I said, there's a world where they're better, but their record's worse. I mean, it's that tough, really.
What is the one player you're most excited to see, or maybe position group, whatever, however you want to take it? I'm going to say player, but what's the one person you're really looking for or looking forward to watching? Maybe just out of personal reasons. You don't have to be
Yeah,
anything
I'm
specific, but
I'm really torn. I would say, I mean, Jackson Arnold's up there for me. I'm really excited to see him because I mean, like I said, with Dylan Gabriel going to Oregon, and I mean, obviously, this is a guy that's played a ton of football and just had a fantastic year for Oklahoma. If that guy's leaving, I mean, that to me, that gives a pretty good sign of what Jackson Arnold can be or is. And so I'm very excited to see him. And then another one, I would probably have these two tied for first, but Nico Maliva, I'm excited. Like I want to see, can he elevate that Josh Heupel offense back to what we saw in 2022? And I
right.
think that's the style of offense that Tennessee, I think, really wants to play. And I think he can get them back to that level of and play in that style. Because last year it wasn't an explosive offense like we saw in 2022. You know,
Right.
with Joe Milton, like obviously he had a cannon, but it was
They
more
ran
of
the
a
ball.
it was a lot more of a run first offense last year, and it wasn't explosive as I think Josh Heupel offense wants to be. And I think you'll see them get back to that level with him. I'm excited to see if he can take them back to that.
Absolutely. I'm excited to see my one person I'm looking forward to is Brock Vandergriff. I really he had a
Mm-hmm.
lot of hype when he was at Georgia. There was a bunch of talk and uh, battles with him and Carson Beck when they were both under Stetson Bennett of who is going to be the next, to take the throne, basically. And there was a bunch going back and forth. A lot of people like Carson Beck, a lot of people like Vandergriff, and it was really just 1A, 1B, whichever you wanted to put, whichever either way, it's pretty much the same. So as good as we saw Carson Beck being, if Vandergriff was truly competing and giving him a chance to win the job at Georgia, then he is going to elevate Kentucky's offense to another level. And I'm excited to see what he brings to the table. If he is as good as everybody expected him to be and talked about him being at Georgia, and can he perform when the lights turn on, not just close practice.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to see him up there at Kentucky. Another guy, um, Georgia land out of the portal, tight end Benjamin Urasek from Stanford. I've heard a lot of really good things about him.
I have not
Um,
heard that name. Last time this happened on the podcast, we talked about a Georgia tight end incoming. I talked about Brock Bowers, and you said, I haven't heard of him. What did it turn out to be? You just say this name. I say, I haven't heard of him.
yeah,
It's going to
Benjamin
Georgia.
Urasek from
Let's see how he turns out.
yeah, a transfer. I mean, they're very, very high on him. I mean, I've heard some good things. Obviously, I think had some pretty good numbers at Stanford, I think,
Mm-hmm.
but I have heard his name some that people are really expecting to burst onto the scene, especially in this offense. You
Right.
know, obviously they're deep at tight end, but I think Oscar Delp's back as well, but they're really expecting some big things out of your set. I think with Carson Bett returning, having one of the best quarterbacks in the country, I think he's going to get a lot of targets, and I'm expecting a pretty big year from him. But I think he's a guy that a lot of people may not know early on, but I think by mid to late season, I think that's a name that'll be popping more nationally. But I'm excited to see him too, what he can do in that offense. We've seen how tight ends have flourished in that offense. Brock Bowers and Darnell Washington, and they've been deep at that position over the last several years. So I'm excited to see him as well, see how he does, kind of transferring to the SEC.
Absolutely.
We really appreciate everyone tuning in. As I said, we've got A-Days coming up. Spring games this week. Auburn's playing this Saturday. And then I believe 6 or 7 schools playing on the 13th. So have a lot more news coming out of wrapping up these spring practices. The transfer portal window is opening up, I believe, on the 10th or 15th of April. As we talked about in our last episode, it's expected to be insane. I've been hearing buzz about that for weeks. Not really any specific names, but there's been a lot of people within the know that are covering this daily saying, like, there's going to be some surprise names that maybe people aren't expecting. So stay tuned to that over the next, week or two. Should be really interesting, exciting to see how that shakes out. But they're expecting a very active portal window when that opens up. So
I've heard maybe Caleb Downs potentially maybe coming back to Alabama. I heard there's not really a whole lot of steam on that, but I did hear that was a rumbling.
Yeah, well, like I said, this Kane Womack defense, man, the safeties are going to be making plays everywhere. So honestly, and this is not just me giving my recruiting pitch. Honestly, like I'm being dead serious here. Like he would absolutely feast, and it's a shame he ended up leaving in the first place, because I'm telling you, the way these safeties are going to have their eyes on the ball this year, like Malachi Moore, I think he's going to have a great year. He's a veteran guy, knows defense. Like he's a guy that'll pick it up quickly, I think. But I think the safeties in this defense are going to be huge. I think they're going to make plays everywhere. It's a big, defense that wants to force a bunch of turnovers. So he would feast in this defense. I'm just saying. I mean, obviously he's a great player. He'd be good wherever you put him. He's just a great football player first and foremost. But yeah, I don't think it's going to happen. I think the Ohio State bagmen have come out in full force and are not going to let Caleb Downs lead Columbus. But yeah, I think these safeties. I think he'd be awesome. I think he'd have a chance to have a lot of turnovers in this defense, but I don't believe it's going to happen. I think he'll make a bunch of plays for Ohio State instead.
Absolutely.
But thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll catch y'all on the next episode.
Thank you, guys.